Hi there, Brandon here. We are going to cover some more marketing and monetizing your podcast. I have got a pretty cool section for you today. It's going to be all about the newsletter, the importance of the newsletter, why you need a newsletter, how to use a newsletter, and hopefully you get some value out of this. So without further ado, let's get started on this. So who are we? We are a podcast production studio, Blue Couch Studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you need help with recording your podcast or any sort of production needs, scripting, strategy, any of those things, we got you covered. Give us a shout. And we are partnered with Will from Citizens of Sound, hence the name Citizen Blue. And we get we combine forces to create this course to help you get better at podcasting. Okay, I'm back. So we are a podcast production studio, and we've partnered with a local podcast agency, Citizens of Sound, and we created Citizen Blue to be of service to you. So hopefully you get some value out of this. All right, here we go. Let's start with marketing your podcast. Newsletters. Should you have one? First off, let's go through some of the myths. Myth number one, I need thousands of subscribers. False. Now, it'd be great, obviously, to have 1,000 subscribers. You could do a lot with that for sure. And if you are doing the right things to working towards getting 1,000 subscribers, I would say keep up the good work. But in reality, 1,000 engaged subscribers can outperform 50,000 passive listeners. So think about that. So if you can get people that are actually opening your emails, reading them, clicking on your links, that's where the magic happens. Okay. And the revenue comes from trust. So when people trust you, they end up buying from you. They end up using your product or service. They end up joining your coaching community, or your, consulting business, or whatever it is that you might be promoting beyond the show. Volume doesn't matter. I mean, if you have 100,000 people, none of them ever 100,000 listeners and none of them ever progress past being just listeners, then you're not going to be able to do much with that. So myth number two, I have nothing to write about. Well, you do. It's a lot easier than you think. First off, your podcast itself is a source of things to write about. You can summarize some of the key takeaways. You can do it behind the scenes. You could expand upon the lesson. In fact, that's my favorite. I wouldn't necessarily think of your newsletter as a complete addition to your show. I would think of it as part two. Like, hey, you're listening to my podcast episode. Today we're talking about newsletters. But on our newsletter, we're going to talk about the top 10 ways to get started. Easy ways to get started on your newsletter. So it's an extension, but it can't be, you don't want to refurbish too much of the same information. Now you can use your newsletter to go, hey, go back to episode 10 and tune in because I talked about how to start newsletters. You can reference other shows, but think of it as an additional episode in a way. That's the simplest way to put it. It's, I just released my weekly episode, and then here's my weekly newsletter to supplement it. Okay. And then think about action steps. Your newsletter, it's so much easier to put at the bottom, book a call. download our call to action, whatever that case may be. So you've already got the content to make a newsletter. It's just an extension of your show. Okay. Myth number 3, newsletters are dying. I hear this all the time. Newsletter sounds boring. But in reality, email marketing, it consistently delivers one of the highest ROIs in marketing. Consistently. And really, inboxes they're intentional places. People go there, they check, they're scrolling through and looking and going, what do I need to get rid of? What do I not? I mean, as long as you can stay out of the spam folder, your inbox is a place where people are looking for stuff. They're checking to see if they got an email. Oh, this is interesting. And so, and they self-select. So it's an important place to be. Okay. Myth number 4, social media replaces email. No, email builds awareness social media builds awareness. Email builds ownership. They serve 2 different roles. It's like a 1-2 punch. You can't expect to grow a podcast just by listeners. You need to have the newsletter and the email marketing piece with the podcast. They help each other. So the social media doesn't replace it. It's part of it. So there's a few of the biggest myths, and I'm glad we started with that because I wanted to dispel all those things. And you might be going, tell me more. Let me learn more about why I should have a newsletter and how do I get one started? So let's get into that. So let's start with the first and most important thing. Do you own your audience? So think about this. You put your podcast on Spotify, or maybe you put it on YouTube, or maybe you're promoting it on Facebook. Maybe you've got a group on Facebook you're promoting it with, or maybe you're putting clips on Instagram. None of those platforms you own. If things change with the algorithms, or for some reason you get banned or shut down, I mean, you're gone. Like, your audience is borrowed. It's like, only if you're allowed to talk to them, you would be allowed to do it. Now, in most cases that doesn't happen, but it still happens. But an email list where a newsletter lives, you own that. I mean, it's yours. If YouTube were to shut down tomorrow, you would still be able to communicate to your listeners through your email. So it's super important to have that piece in place. I think people underestimate it because it's boring. It's not as interesting as making social media content, making videos, doing a podcast, bringing a guest on. But in reality, the email piece of the puzzle it's not where you necessarily get discovered. It's where people land when they're interested in you, but it's definitely where you can monetize. It's definitely where you can convert. It's definitely where you can get people to jump on a call. And so that in itself makes it a necessity if you're serious about podcasting, especially if you're doing business podcasting and you're trying to market your show. So, YouTube controls reach, Spotify controls their distribution. Email's the only channel where you can control the delivery. You can reach listeners directly. Then you're not competing with an algorithm. Now, you got to be careful landing in spam, and there's definitely some things there with Google, some rules you've got to follow, some best practices. But overall, it's much better than competing with the algorithm. All right. Converting listeners. So having an email list with a newsletter, a weekly newsletter, converts those listeners into an actual audience. Most listeners aren't going to take action because they're just passively listening. They're driving, they're, so on and so forth. But the email turns those listeners into subscribers. Hey, have you subscribed? And even if they haven't subscribed, they're now getting a routine email, which basically is like, hey, I'm here. Hey, what's going on? And if you're just audio only, that makes a lot of sense because you may not get notifications when a new episode comes out. You may not get notified. But with the email, hey, we just dropped a new episode. Hey, this episode covers this pain point. Hey, we're going to do this and break down this on this episode. You just have an extra component, keeps people subscribed, so to say. But it also turns passive listeners into buyers. You say the right things on the episode, get people intrigued. They download your guide, they're following your newsletter, and you make an offer. That's how you're going to get people to book a call. In most cases, when people are listening to a show, they aren't booking calls. They're not going, oh man, I need to book a call immediately with this person. That's happening after the show. So if you don't have anything after your show, how is that happening? How are you getting booked? So, and it also helps build the community. So you can actually build community members from your email. So super, super important. The other thing, and I kind of skipped past it, but you can add more value with a newsletter. So your email doesn't have to be, hey, do this all the time. In fact, that might just be at the very bottom of the email, or maybe at the very top. But you can make your email or make your newsletter just as valuable as your episode. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite guys to follow, Alex Hormozy, all about it giving value. So you can watch his YouTube, learn a lot of free things. You can follow him on Instagram, get these free tips. And then if you sign up for his newsletter, he has a thing called Mosey Minute, and he gives you tips on how to do something within a minute. Like he's like, it will take you less than a minute to read this, and you can immediately take action by reading this. And so it's just an extra piece of value instead of being a redundant, what I would not do with an email list or with a newsletter is just say, hey, my last episode covered these 5 things. Go check it out here. That's a waste of a call to action. And in some cases, it makes sense to do that if you're trying to prove a different point. But the better way to do it is to say, hey, I'm going to teach you about these 5 things in this email. Thing number 1, thing number 2, or 3, or 4. Oh, by the way, if you want to learn more, I do have an episode that covers more. So if they want more, they can do it, but still give the value. Don't point them somewhere else to go get the value. Get the value delivered in that email, and then have one call to action at the bottom. Interested in my coaching, book a call. If you need this lead magnet, you need this free resource, here it is. So I personally think that the email should get people, the tagline at the bottom, the signature at the bottom should always have an opportunity for someone to book a call with you. Like, it's just the easiest and best way to be someone that's already listened to you. They like you. Now they're reading your emails and they're going, wow, this is cool. Wow, this is cool. Have some kind of a link there at the bottom for them to connect with you or to buy or to jump on a call of some sort. That's the magic. That's where it happens. But think of the email as in more value in addition to the episode. So instead of doing 2 episodes a week, do 1 episode a week and then add an email as your mini episode delivered in written form. So there we go. But it's the only way you're going to convert your listeners. This is kind of an extension on what I was just discussing, but extend your episode beyond the time people are listening. So you might be listening to people might even finish the episode. They might get 15 minutes in and get busy, put it down and come back to it later or never come back to it. But if you're reaching out at a different time, oh yeah, I like that guy. What's he have to say now? When they're doing something completely different than listening, they might be checking to see if they got a receipt emailed to them, or they might just be scrolling through to clean up their inbox. Oh, well, I got this notice here. I wonder what he's up to. So think of social media as like interrupting people. Boom, interruption based. Hey, stop, check it out. Hey, stop this, check it out. But email, it's very, very permission based. So, you know, and when people are giving you permission to email them and you are taking that to give them more value, like highlighting some of the key insights from other episodes or resurfacing content. Hey, we talked about this 10 years ago. I still have the same opinion, or, hey, I changed my opinion on it, resurfacing content that you've done before. And then possibly at the end of it, sending people back to go check out an episode if they're still interested. All of those are great ways to make that happen. But let's get into this next point here. The opt-in, the permission. I mean, someone's saying, yeah, I'll let you email me. And yeah, I'm interested in I feel like what you're giving me is valuable. So I want to hear from you again. And I think that is super important if you're trying to increase authority, if you're trying to get conversion. Someone giving you that permission to do that is awesome. Now, you might have to give away some free lead magnets to get their email opt-in. Or it might just be as simple as, hey, join my newsletter. I'm going to continue to give you free tips. If they like what the free tips you're giving in the episode and you're giving more educational free tips in the newsletter and you're telling them, go download it, that could be a magic formula as well. So the opt-in's magic. All right. Monetize. So this is the real reason you need a newsletter. So I'm going to give you some examples, but the email list monetize way far better than downloads. Imagine trying to wait for 1,000 downloads to try to get a sponsorship for $20 or $200. Whereas someone can get an email, be on a newsletter, and buy your, high ticket coaching, or sign up for some of your services. And that's going to pay way better than any sort of sponsorship. So the email list is super, super valuable. And, just some examples. I mean, when you have a course launch, hey, we launched a course, come check it out here. Sure, you could do that on a podcast episode, but if they don't tune in for it, how are they going to know? Coaching offers. Hey, we're doing a unique coaching thing. Check it out. Here's what we're doing. Hey, there's an event coming up. Check it out. Maybe you're interested in checking it out. Hey, here's those links I promised you in the episode talking about some of the products we're reviewing or some of the products we're using. Hey, I know I talked about this sponsor, but man, here's the link to get a discount on using their stuff. And then here's some services that, we offer, and maybe these can help you out. It's just way better having an email list. You're letting the email, the opt-in and the permission to tell them more about your stuff, as opposed to a podcast episode where people are actually trying to extract some value, get a little bit of entertainment. They're not really wanting to be sold to. So super important. All right, let's move on. So let's get into some best practices. All right, here we go. So I got this tip from a guy that I follow who does podcasting for businesses. And he's awesome. And he recommends, and I think this is important, but having your episode released like on a Monday, for example, and then getting your newsletter out within 72 hours. So it keeps people top of mind. It just seems to be the magic window of time. It's enough time for them to digest your episode, but also enough time for them to go, oh, let me learn about this newsletter. And you don't want to do a monthly newsletter and then a weekly show. And you definitely don't want to do the opposite of that either, a weekly newsletter and just a monthly show. You want to try to shoot for, if you're doing a weekly episode, get a weekly newsletter. If you're doing episode every 2 weeks, which we don't recommend, but if you are, you should have a newsletter every 2 weeks. You want to try to stay into that structure. And I mentioned it earlier, but make sure your newsletter is adding more value, not just repeating what you learned in the episode. Don't just take the episode and summarize it. Not a good idea. And if you want to use the same episode, I recommend trying to add even more. Like, hey, in the newsletter, we're going to talk about something even different, even better. Or we're going to talk about part 2, if you're going to tie it into the episode. And the other thing is have one call to action. Don't be like, download this, here's that, here's this, here's this, here's that. Just be like, think of your podcast having one call to action to your newsletter, and then your newsletter having one call to action to book a call, or one call to action to book, buy a product. It just keeps it simpler. Like, your episode is sending people here, your newsletter is sending people here. One purpose, one call to action. I think that's important. And just some newsletter tips to go along with that, some other stuff. 2 to 3 takeaways, actionable advice. Like, hey, try this. This is what works. And make it super skimmable, super readable, talking 1 to 2 minutes. Like, someone needs to be able to look at this. I mean, even a minute might be too long, but read through this and, okay, wow, that's good stuff. Click, like, take a call. Oh, wow, that's great stuff. I need to make sure I read the next one. Next time that when they get value out, even if they don't book a call, they're more likely to open up the next email. And I do this a lot, and I know, it's pretty common, but you might get a weekly email from someone, know who it is, not open it. 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by, 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks go by. Then you're like, oh, this one seems interesting. And then click on it. And you might be interesting enough to where you maybe go back and check out some of the other emails they left. But don't be alarmed if somebody can't sit down and they're not going to digest your content like they would on YouTube. They're not going to go, oh, this is cool. Let me see what other stuff they got. But it might be no click. Then all of a sudden, 2 months later, someone clicks on something, it resonates with them, and they book a call with you. And they're reminded to go back. Oh, yeah, I need to go back and listen to that episode. It's like you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden you see a reminder. Oh yeah, Billy Bob's Barbecue. Yeah, I remember. I love that place. I'm going to go eat there next time. And when you get hungry again, oh yeah, you remember. It's another way of keeping you top of mind. So, some recommendations. I'm not sponsored by any of these, but MailChimp is really good. Go High Level has a really cool, it has to be built from scratch, but they have some good email stuff. Beehive, ConvertKit, Kajabi. Those are some really good places to start if you're trying to get into email marketing. I like Go High Level because you can attach everything together and have all of your business CRM and your email marketing all together. But just to close things out, thank you for listening. Your podcast is the trust builder. It's the awareness builder. It's the value giver. And your email asset should increase that value. But that's the email list is the asset. Okay. The assets are what's going to create predictable income. So I highly recommend you get started on it. If you need help with this, let us know. Jump into our VIP coaching, and we'd be happy to help you get set up with an email list or give you some recommendations on what you're already doing if it's not working for you. And hopefully you tune in next week for more production from Will, starting your podcast with Will, or marketing and monetizing your podcast with me. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.